Welcome to Built-In Boots, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes at the DDS companies, where we're laying the foundation for tomorrow's infrastructure. In each episode, we bring you the real stories from the people who make it all happen, honoring everyone from the field to the front office. Join us as we explore their journeys, uncover the lessons they've learned, and show you how to build a rewarding career in the civil construction industry. If you're ready to learn from those who've built their success from the ground up, you're in the right place. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the podcast. If you have ever wondered how the behind-the-scenes finance team at DDS helps keep our projects on track, this episode is for you. Today, we're talking to Patrick and Jackson from our finance team about how they bridge the gap between operations and accounting.
You'll learn how data, collaboration, and a service-first mindset drive operational excellence here at DDS. It's not just about the numbers. It's about using them to make better decisions, improve efficiency, and ultimately keep our projects profitable.
So stick around because we're diving into real-world examples of how finance directly impacts every aspect of our work, from the field to the office. So let's get into it.
Hey guys, welcome to the Built-In Boots podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Potter. I'm joined today with my co-host, Griffin Haley.
How we doing, guys?
Dude, how are you doing?
Good, man. I'm excited to be here.
Brother, where are we at today?
We are in the Teddy Fusco training room up at our training center at 45 Hendricks. Just got wrapped with volume 2 of the Leadership Summit, and we're joined with a couple cool guests.
Who do we got here today?
So we got Jackson Parker and Patrick Climie.
Awesome.
Some pretty cool guests. We're excited.
Yeah, excited to be here. Thanks for having us.
Guys, welcome to the show. Again, this is the Built-In Boots podcast. This podcast kind of started last season, okay? We started with the roadshow episodes. We're kind of coming through that, and we're going to get some folks in the office. So you guys are the first ones up.
Got it. How
do you feel?
We're the second, we're the second level.
A lot of pressure.
Yeah. You guys are in the office. Like, you guys are office folks.
Yeah, the back end.
Yeah. I'm excited to have you guys on. So thanks again for joining us on this podcast episode. Patrick, let's start with you. What do you do for DDS?
Yeah, so the team that we're on, they lovingly call us the Viper Squad. And our role here at DDS is we're really the hub and spoke of all financial information to our internal stakeholders, right? So our main core function is we translate operations information for accounting, and then we translate accounting information for operations. That's kind of the origin of what our team is. Obviously, there's a lot of things that go into accounting and operations, whether it's safety, whether it's HR, whether it's new laws and regulations that are passed in the state in regards to safety or, utility companies. So our role is to make sure that everybody that needs those pieces of information, whether it be financial or non-financial, that will lead into financial information, that's what we do as a team.
That's pretty impressive, actually. I don't know how many other construction companies have teams like yourselves. I mean, I'm very ignorant in that sense that I don't know if that's a common thing. Is your role within a construction company a common thing?
In my experience, I think there's usually a separation between like operational or field finance and then what they call, continuous improvement or, internal communications, right? Where our team kind of molds those together and we try to integrate that into our day-to-day.
Very, very cool. Jackson Parker, tell me about yourself.
So I'm a financial analyst here. I work for John Kupiak in the Energy Services Division and then Matt Clark in the Civil Division as well. So I graduated college from James Madison in 2021, and then I started working here in May, so right after graduation. I studied finance in college, and I knew I wanted to do that in the professional world. But at that time, so that's when COVID hit, so I was looking for a job in the D.C., Arlington area. With COVID freezes and hiring freezes and all that stuff, I found my way back home here to Rochester, New York, and I honestly went to LinkedIn, and this was the second thing that I found when I typed in finance, and I gave it a shot and interviewed and got in here, so it's coming up on 4 years now in May.
Wow, and I bet you those 4 years flew by, just like my tenure here. It's like, holy crap, you look back.
Yeah, and Patrick started just 2 months before me, so
yeah,
kind of been here for the same amount of time.
Yeah, it's funny that you found it on LinkedIn. I actually found it randomly on like Glassdoor or whatnot and randomly applied.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's just funny that we kind of stumbled upon the company. Yeah, because you came fresh out of school right after I started.
And I will say, too, the listing on LinkedIn did say junior financial analyst. So they were looking for basically a fresh out of college, I don't want to say no experience, but kind of that entry role position. And that is exactly what I was looking for. And after I interviewed, I felt comfortable doing this because there wasn't any major expectations in what they were looking for. Just someone who can show up to work, put their head down, get after it.
Yeah, for sure. I'm in operations. You guys know this. I mean, Patrick, you and I have worked together since we started. Jackson, I'm just meeting you now, or meeting you at this event here. There's another person on your team that I work with. His name is Zach, and he's a phenomenal guy to work with. And again, I wouldn't have even known I needed help in that part of the business until you have somebody who's really good at crunching numbers, looking at large data sets and breaking that down, using Microsoft Excel. Even just using that program and getting some help from him in that aspect has been super helpful. And then having access to the data. And I think that's something I want to talk about with you because I think you're an innovator, Patrick, on that thing is, maybe you can talk a little bit about what you've done with Power BI and some of the data that we get to see as operations leaders, and having access to that data visually has been huge for us. Going back a little bit on maybe both of your backstories, Patrick, do you have a background in finance? Tell me how you found your way into this position.
Yeah, so kind of a non-traditional path. I mean, even into finance myself. Growing up, my dad was in restaurants, had a long career in the hospitality business, did that for 20 years, starting very young. And through that, you start moving your way up and, promoted to bartender and then bar manager and just kind of doing different things. I kind of started to like the inventory side and figuring out what what you were making money on at the bar and how to have the right mix. Yeah. And then had the opportunity to move out to upstate New York. I'm originally from Michigan. And when I came out here, decided to go back to school. I knew I wanted to do something in business. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And accounting just kind of spoke to me. I know it sounds really nerdy, but everything must be balanced, the debits and the credits. I just really took to it. Mm-hmm. So I went the traditional kind of public accounting route, right? I went to SUNY Geneseo, graduated with an accounting degree, and started at PricewaterhouseCoopers, one of the big four accounting firms. Wow. Took my CPA exams. I was in audit. And Corning, the glass company, was my main client. So I kind of came from manufacturing. And I really, really love that because when you're auditing a manufacturing company, you get to go to the factories and you get to see the stuff get made. And I didn't realize how cool factories were with robots, doing really cool stuff. And I really enjoyed that. Along the way, met my wife and had a couple of kids. And then when baby number 2 came, dad being at a hotel, 5-6 months out of the year traveling wasn't really great for the home life. So I started to kind of look around for just see what opportunities were out there. And, just like Jackson found us on LinkedIn, I stumbled upon an opportunity on Glassdoor. I applied for the position and then, just, hey, I'll go talk to him and see what's going on. And then when I came in and I met with, Mike Fallett and Morgan were my initial contact points and interviews here. Yep. You just kind of felt that the culture fit was right. It's hard to explain, but sometimes you just know. Yeah. So I came in and I didn't have, and they hired me as basically a junior analyst in Jackson's position. I had some experience, but I knew nothing about construction. Right. I mean, I can't even hammer a nail. So I was very green. And I remember starting in March of 2021, and we had our biggest project ever kicking off, CM6, 4 weeks later. And basically they're like, yeah, you're going to track this project. You're going to be the one that's, tracking the progress and letting everybody know how things are going, right? And I have no idea what's going on.
Trial by fire.
Yeah, exactly. And we're putting in this large, 10-mile pipe into the ground. And I'll never forget, the second week working with the superintendents, you're trying to figure out where we are on the project and progress and stuff like that. And you go to our conference room and you got your Rick Cantrell, our supervisor, and John Kupiak, the GM, and Mike Fallett and Sean Donahoe, 100 years of pipeline. Okay, let's see where we're at in this project. And I don't have any idea what I'm talking about. And I'll never forget like putting up the progress of like our first 10 days up on the board. And I remember I had like, clearing, we were 15% complete on clearing and 5% complete on like bending, and then
50% on coding.
Yeah, 50% on coding and like 30% done with backfill. Like, and instantly everyone in the room was like, yeah, this can't be right. And I was just
you
horrified.
butchered it.
Just so poorly, just had no idea what was going
Dude,
on.
I totally thought you were going to go the other way. Like you blew him out of the water.
Oh,
I'm just a genius.
Yeah.
I'm born a genius.
No. And basically everything I did was wrong. To the 10th degree. And I'll never forget that total fear when they said, oh, this is so wrong. And instead of like making me feel that fear, everybody in the room stopped. Well, everyone stopped what they were doing. And all of those 4 highly compensated, experienced individuals took like 45 minutes to calmly explain to me exactly what each of these were, how to track them, and how the project was going to progress, and how I can like think about how this project is going. And
very cool.
I'll never forget knowing that it's okay to say I don't know, and that we're here to learn together and we're part of the team. So it really made me feel like a part of the team, and it's okay to
That's amazing.
ask a question and learn from other people. And it was just, I knew kind of right then it was, okay, this is my spot. I like it here.
Yeah.
And then Jackson started, and I had to train him, and I had to train you on that project like 2 months later.
I started 2 months after you, and then, that project was 15 minutes from the office, so we would head there every single day together.
Yeah.
We would drive together, and I remember you telling me that story, and you sat me down being like, I know you don't know this. If there's something that pops up, just say you don't know. Be honest. And, the day I met Rick, I remember feeling extremely comfortable with him. The nicest guy in the world.
Oh, yeah.
He would take, time out of his day to drive us around in his truck and explain everything to us. And, like we knew nothing, and I didn't know anything. So, to have that, sense of family on week 2 for me, that's awesome. And
That's
I knew that
amazing.
This is where I wanted to be.
Yeah, and it's very like learning. There's so much to know in this business, and all the different units of business we have, and all this experience available to learn about this whole symphony that underlies the entirety of like the entire world that everyone relies on to just function. And it's just amazing. There's always something to learn.
It's pretty amazing, the business that we're in. It kind of goes unseen. It's like everything that we install, I mean, it just disappears once it's backfilled, right? And the world doesn't know anything about it, but it's critical infrastructure. At the end of the day, I mean, it's infrastructure that needs to go in the ground. It needs to get replaced. It needs to get upgraded, whatever. And we do critical infrastructure work, and it's something that you can be proud of, but it's not necessarily that people are going to see that, they don't usually see that. So
yeah, it's critical, ever changing, and you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the huge thing with, especially you can't BS anybody when you're sitting in a room with those guys. They'll see right through you pretty quick. So that's how I've gotten so far. You don't always ask, even as a trainer, some guy will point it out in new hire. He'll come in with 20 years experience. I'm like, I don't know everything just because I'm up here. I'm just a pretty face. You tell me what you know, and we can work off of from that, But
it's good. That's being humble too. It's being, humble to the fact, like you said there, Patrick, is you were humble enough to say, I don't know. And I think that's important. And you're right. The culture here at DDS, I mean, we're very forgiving to that. It's like, okay, if you don't know, we will teach you. We will help you get there so that you do understand. And ultimately, it helps the team in the long run.
Yeah.
Making that investment in you. And I'm like you said, like that was senior leadership that was there. And they coached you through it. And look at you now.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that was like my last day. Like, I just never forget. I thought that was and that culture. Sean's now running the whole North Gas division for Arterra, but he's still involved, and it's the continuity of that culture. Is just continuing, and that's what I really think is awesome about our team is that you come in and like Jackson, you're fresh. Typically the typical path is you come in right out of school and you're not expected to know what's going on. But really what sets, I think, our team apart is that we feel like we're of service. Like we're here to be of service to the different stakeholders internally. And I think that really builds the trust that people have in our team and what we're providing for the organization. And
That's really our job right there.
Yeah.
To provide for them.
Yeah.
In any way possible.
Yeah, I link it back to like I'm just working in a restaurant and being of service, but just applying those skills in a different manner in a way.
I love that.
So when we were doing your name tags, I keep staring at the Vipers. What exactly is that?
So the name of the team was before either of our time. I think it started in 2018. I think that's the year that it started. And there was always that struggle, and Jordan, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're in operations. There's always that translation struggle of the language of operations and the language of accounting.
Finance or numbers or whatever.
And so the original idea was Sean wanted someone to come in and be the bridge between those two parties and be vigorous on project progress, project performance, and always focused on profitability of projects, right? So it was Sean's original mission, and the Vipers were kind of like very important persons. Like, this person works for me. Like, this is I'm putting this person in this role to report on your operations side and the accounting side to me. So to me, it's like, number one, you're like a VIP. That's kind of how I think of it as a Viper. And then you're important because you're the one that's the translator. You're the synthesizer of the operations, the accounting, right? Safety gets involved with what safety qualifications, what safety standards are we under here? HR, payroll. Hey, are we on? Is this a prevailing wage job? What county is it operating in? Right. And so the Vipers are really, you're the ones that go find the information and report back to who needs to get it. And we think we've carried on the tradition and kind of stepped our game up a little bit we're not just operations and accounting now. We're safety, we're HR, we're payroll, we're reporting up to our parent company, Arterra. We're working with Feeney Brothers, and we got a new company that, a new team down in Collierville, Tennessee at Mid-South that we're going to start to work with them on their operations. So
that's impressive, man. How many people are on your team?
There's 3 of us now. So there's myself that runs team. There's Jackson that runs the commercial side, the civil and energy divisions, and then Zach Barber, who does our utility, so gas distribution and telecom. So we got 3 now, and we're always looking for more. So there's always great opportunities with us.
That's pretty cool. So true VIPs being 3.
I guess.
Tight-knit group. So that's where you get into tracking those projects with the coatings and backfill, like you talked about on Team 6. I didn't know that. That's pretty cool.
So I started in that side, and then I moved over I was on the distribution side for 2 years. I think I was doing distribution and telecom. And then now I'm really focusing on engineers as my only division I'm doing day to day. And these guys do most of the work. They make me look good.
Touching back on what we talked about earlier, learning about you guys and what you do. I don't know of, I've worked at a few companies. I definitely don't know of any company that has somebody like you or your team. There may be, people in finances or, project managers, but there's never that intermediary that kind of gives that cushion. You get down to those mom and pop sizes or even 50, 60, 70 guys. It's usually the boss that's doing it,
right,
or one of his family members or something like that. It sounds like there was a need for it. By the size of the company, we start growing, become more profitable. So that's really cool.
We also like to call ourselves the easy button, right? Hey, whatever our project managers, supervisors, GMs need, just let us know. We're the easy button for you.
If there's something you got time for, let us know.
Yeah.
So I can speak to that on the operations side, because when I first started interacting with you, Patrick, you were very humble, and I love that about you. You were very humble. You came open-handed, servant-minded, and you said, Jordan, I just want to understand your business. And you and I sat down, you were grilling me. You were just absolutely grilling me.
I just had the same thing from about 2 hours ago.
Yeah. But you were doing it because you wanted to understand. You wanted to understand what purpose you could play on the team so that you were of service. You weren't doing it because you were trying to be, a superhero necessarily, but you were just trying to be there to support. And I love that about you.
100%.
And my perception of your role, I didn't know what you were there to do. I was like,
why is he talking to me?
Why does he ask me all these questions? Well, what does he want from
You're taking the words right out of my mouth. It was funny. I thought you were looking for numbers at first.
And I'm like, is he like, is this more work that I'm going to have to do because he's looking for numbers? It was the exact opposite. You came in, you're like, how can I help you? Where's the biggest pain point right now? And then you just started to put out fires. And then all of a sudden I'm like, dang, this dude knows what's up. He knows, he was super helpful, and I really appreciate that about you.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate the kind words. And, I think Jackson will attest to it. I'm genuinely just a very curious person, and I just want to know. For me, I want to try to understand. And I don't know. We were just here for 2 days with all these brave men and women who are out in the field in the cold and the heat, putting their lives on the line so that we can have electricity and gas and all the things we need. I'm sitting in a comfortable office, air conditioned and heated, and I don't know what it takes to put gas pipeline in the ground or build a civil site. So like, I want to learn how you're doing that and how can I help you do that better? How can I make your job easier? And how can we add value, right? It's all about how can you add value, be more valuable to the people around you, right?
I think you guys do that very well as a team. So the ways, just to give some examples of how your team supports us in operations, looking at our projects on the profitability side of things is very, very important. We don't have enough time to put those numbers together and to really look at them, right? We have enough time to look at them, but we don't have enough time to build that financial model to be able to actually have access to it. So you guys do that for us, for us in operations. Can you talk to us about what you did with Power BI and what you did with all of this data that's coming in? I mean, you're talking about costs and productions and revenue, like all this stuff. Break that down for us.
Well, I'm actually going to defer to Jackson here because Jackson's kind of taking all that over on the main reporting. So so kind of walk them through, how does that work? What's that process look like? And how do you kind of get that out to people?
Well, there's a lot of moving parts, right? First and foremost, he's deferring off to me because, he's humble, like you brought up.
Yeah.
He spent hours and hours and hours working on the SQL data feed, right? That is pulling live information from coins, from, all these other forms that we've built and databases that we're using that can get a live feed for labor, for equipment, for subcontractors, for all that stuff that we can compile into, for lack of a better word, into one visual to give you guys somewhat of a live view into, hey, how are you performing this week? How are you performing job to date? What do we need to improve on? What are we doing? What are we excelling at? And how can we take advantage of that? But I'll also say, going back to when you first talked to him, I remember my first experiences with the energy services project managers. They were the same way. They were like, why are you talking to me? Like, are you just causing me more trouble, all that stuff? And then, once we kind of got in the rhythm of it, I think they started to realize, like, hey, you're taking stuff off my plate here. Like, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
No, but, data feeds and all that stuff, that was all you. So,
there's going to be people that are going to listen to this podcast and hear Power BI. Like, what's Power BI? So Power BI, just for the listener who may not know, I'm going to explain it the best that I can.
I want to explain it back to me in your own words. Yeah.
So Power BI is the tool that presents data in a visual way.
Yeah.
And it gives you access in a dynamic way. So whereas I'm pretty decent at actually building Excel spreadsheets and looking at numbers, but it's very, very linear. You can't dive into the data that well. And Power BI has really unlocked the data, I would say. It's given me the ability to look at a job, like you said, Jackson, job to date. I can look at it. Well, I can look at it from the past week. The numbers change live, as I change one filter set. And it's amazing because you can find gaps, you can find weak points, you can find, red flags if something doesn't look right. And it's a tool that has become very, very helpful for us in operations. I've seen this Power BI dashboard be used in other ways more than just finance. Like you had said earlier, Patrick, I think you guys worked with safety. I think you've worked with fleet. I think you guys have taken your skill set of, building this tool and applied it in other areas beyond finance. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, no, and you explained it very well. And I think one of the keys with the platform of Power BI, right? Microsoft's product was business intelligence is how it started. And I think the best part is that it's very easily distributable, right, for internal communication, and you don't have to email somebody a spreadsheet every time or, update a pivot table and send it out and remember the right people to send it to, right? It's kind of like in a dashboard waiting for you to go. You can look at it as much as you want, get as detailed as you want, or you can just open up the main page and say, hey, the month of February, how am I looking on my revenue and cost and margin to my targets, and what's my year looking like? And then kind of building off of that, for us, our number one priority is always that everybody gets home safe at the end of the night and goes home to their family, because they're not replaceable there.
Yep.
So for safety, we track a lot of our man hours on the job, and we like to track that by customer so that we can always have that information ready for our customers to say, hey, this is how many man hours we worked on your project last week, last month, last year, the last 5 years, to show that, hey, that's a differentiator for us in the marketplace, that we're focused on that. So, we have that live data coming into reporting for our external third parties that we have to report to, our gas customers, all of our customers, on how many man hours are there, how many hours are we safely working. And that's been a game changer so that they don't have to go and contact payroll. How many hours I have last week? And then let me add that spreadsheet to the one I had before. And then I can calculate the difference. And we can have them focus on their job, which is safety, and let us take care of the calculation so you can focus on the core of your job, which is to focus on the go forward of safety. And then with fleet, in construction, you got we got a lot of equipment, and if it's not running,
You ain't making money.
you ain't making money.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it helps with that decision making when it's like, hey, we got this much yellow iron over here. We have this many, heavy excavators, and we're at this utilization of our targets, right? Because we set targets on that. So when it comes to decision making on like, hey, maybe is it better for us to just lease one short term on this project coming up, and we dispose of these ones, or maybe we're running these so hot that we're actually going over our expected engine hours, and now we're going to have more repairs and maintenance. So maybe we actually lease one because we need another one so we don't burn this one out before the expected useful life. So it's finance adjacent, I like to say, but it's really key for like decision making. And it's not just a finance department. It's your shop, it's your mechanics, it's a value chain all the way down.
Yeah, 100%. That's blown me away. I knew nothing about this. But like you said earlier, one hand washes the other, right? Me and Jordan kind of came from the field side of things. We couldn't do what you guys do. And that's where I think this team is kind of awesome in that factor. And in fact, our listeners that are, maybe mainly in the field have no clue that there's so much on the back end. Maybe some new listeners that think about getting into it, but they don't know where they're fit into a construction role.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
It takes those guessing games out of it, makes our team more efficient, like you said, in the field or in our shop here. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I think you feel like a part of the team. We just had this two-day event, and you got all your foremen here and all your supervisors here, and we do projects all over the country. So a lot of times people are traveling, you don't get together in one room, and it's nice to talk to the foreman and the people, and they have the loving nicknames for you.
Yeah, and I will say too, because we're talking about the summit that we just went through, and at first, I'm going to be honest. At first, when you told me that we were going to this, I was like, "Are you sure? Are you sure I got the invite to this? Like, I'm just a guy who sits upstairs, crunches numbers all day. Like, I thought this was, mainly guys in the field, operational guys who they're leaders out in the field. And what I was thinking about, like, well, I get to see John, I get to see Fallot walk by every day, I get to see all these guys, I interact with them in such a way where, like, I was like, maybe this is kind of just for some of the guys who don't get face-to-face time with them and don't really get to hear about kind of where our vision is all the time, like we do in some of the meetings that we have, and I'm thankful that we get to have them. But from the first 10 minutes that I started hearing Mike speak, I was like, this is nothing what I thought this was going to be. I'm so glad that I'm here and I get to witness this and be a part of it. And then, every time there's a little break or a mini session that we're doing, if we had activity or whatever, you feel included. Everyone at the table around you is talking to you, asking your name, like what you do, where you're from, and, wanting your input if we're doing some little session. And that, to me, was the biggest takeaway is, regardless of what I thought about this, you walk away saying this place is a family feel.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Parker, I'm so glad you said that, brother, because that makes this whole thing feel like it's just worth it.
Yeah.
You know how many positive comments I heard over the past day and a half here? It's been amazing.
Yeah, from the field
really
guys
has.
too. They feel the same way. They maybe never saw you before.
Right.
You always hear the name, but putting a face to a name is always tough, right?
Yeah.
I don't think I met Jackson until I won the Super Bowl squares last year. So it's one of those things.
Complete bookie.
That's right. Yeah. Pay my dues, right?
They're listening. The IRS might be listening.
So speaking about the summit, what do you think your biggest takeaway was from this week? If you had one or two things.
I think for me is honestly the side conversations and talking with our foremen and operators like, hey, we, for us in gas, we started on a new customer this year, right? We extended our region, and it was the first time I got to talk to a couple of the foremen that were working with a new customer. Like, hey, how is it going and picking up materials? How are the inspectors out there? Like, how's the paperwork for you? Like, is it a pain point? Like, can we make it better? Like, how's the process? And you can't really get that in an email or even a phone call.
Not at all.
You're in the room. So I think for me, it's getting that direct feedback from the people who are out there, bringing home the bread, bringing home the bacon.
Yeah.
And, what can we do better at? And that's really what I took away from it. Number one for me.
Yeah, another thing that I was thinking of is, the thing that I kept relaying back to myself was when John Kupiak was talking about, how close we were to zero incidents. And you could tell when he was talking about it that everyone's taking that to heart, being like, we really want to get to zero. Hearing the general managers get to speak about what they're truly passionate and what their goals are. Then I heard, when Brian Strachty was talking about how he feels like he could integrate with Mid-South and what they can produce together, like that to me was really cool to hear from his mouth,
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool hearing the GMs kind of open up and kind of seeing where their heads are.
Yeah, just to piggyback off that, my number two, I was only on one, but the Jason and Clint from Mid-South, our newest business that we
Awesome
just
guys.
acquired. To meet a couple of the team, new teammates in person and just talk to them and just listen to their story and just great people. And the culture fit, and just that was awesome just to see how well they mesh in with what we're doing here and what they're doing there. And I'm just really excited for that partnership going forward from these couple days.
Those fellas from Mid-South that came up are incredible guys.
Yeah.
We got dinner with them last night, and they were great guys.
Yeah.
Perfect match, honestly.
Yeah.
So we're gonna start to land the plane here a little bit. That's a Mark Payne thing. I'm gonna steal that from him.
That's good. That's good.
He doesn't know that, but I have to steal it from him. So as we start to land the plane, I do want to ask you guys both. This is advice for an aspiring finance professional, right? Mm-hmm. Parker, you're young. I mean, let's be honest. You guys are both young, really.
I appreciate that.
Maybe you're not. I don't know. You look young. But I would say this, what advice, and Parker, you're going to go first. What advice would you give someone else considering a career in finance, especially in construction?
Put your foot in the door. We started off by talking that I didn't have any background in this field whatsoever. There was hesitation at first. I saw finance and I knew the majority of my job was going to be numbers related, but I knew that I needed to eventually understand and communicate construction and, that field. But I didn't know anything. All I did was just put my foot in the door and I said, I'm going to give it a shot. Why not? Mm-hmm. And now with the people that I work with, I'm so glad that I did that. I can give a call to any one of the general managers anytime I wanted, and I know they'd pick up, say, hey, what do you need? Anything.
Yeah, amazing.
And I feel like just putting yourself out there just to give it a shot, and then if you don't like it, you don't have to do it. But for someone who is interested in construction, has a background in it, whatever, and they also do enjoy the number side of things, I think this would be a match made in heaven, this position that we're doing right now.
That's awesome. Great advice.
Thank you.
Patrick?
I think the first thing is you need to be humble, right? I think that's key. You don't know what you don't know. You always got to start from that spot of humility. And then number 2 is listen carefully to the pain points that get repeated in the environment you're in. And this is, I don't think, just in construction, I think it's in general. When you hear that echo of pain and things that are causing like friction for people, and then you take time to solve that problem without being asked, the sky's the limit for you. And the construction business is a very pencil and paper business, handshakes still, like even in 2025, right? The age of artificial intelligence and automation, it's a lot of contracts are, hey, I know you, and we're sitting down for lunch, and we're going to shake hands, and then I'm going to fill it out by paper, and that's how we're going to run things. There are so many opportunities to add value and automate and modernize what is going on in this industry. Your opportunities are just endless.
I love that, man. That is unbelievable advice.
Well, thank you.
I think I got to slide a $20 bill across the table, dude. Man.
All right, how about some rapid fire questions? All right, you ready?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it.
Excel or QuickBooks?
Excel.
Excel?
That's not even a question.
Not even close?
That's just Excel.
What?
I laughed because of his response.
This is disgust.
What do you prefer, budgeting or forecasting?
Forecasting.
Forecasting.
Coffee or energy drinks?
Coffee.
Coffee, all right. If DDS Finance had a theme song, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a good question. I know. I want to hear yours first.
I know what you're walking.
I have one.
The Dodgeball Vipers. I can already see it happen.
That's good.
That's awesome.
I want him to go first because I know mine.
Dude, I love that.
I don't know. Nothing's coming to mind right now.
Really?
I'm trying to put all of our personalities together. And
What's I'm saying? I have one, and I feel like you'd have one.
What's yours?
You want me to go first? It's got to be Painted Black by the Rolling Stones because that's how we like our P&L.
Oh, that's awesome. You know what? I might open with that.
I like
that's
it.
Pretty
Yeah.
good. Oh,
That's pretty good.
That's good. All right, we'll let you off the hook, Jackson. That's on the spot. It's good. All right, for both, if you could swap jobs with anyone in DDS for 1 week,
Ooh,
who would it be and why?
oh, that's a good question. That's a good question.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
That's a tough
I think
one.
of both sides of that.
Right. Because, like, do you want to do something that you're familiar with or, like, something totally new?
Exactly.
You know?
I would. So the exact position, I don't know. I'm going to think on that. But I would pick something where I would be out in the field watching, like land pipe, all that stuff. I would, for a whole week, I would learn how to do something.
So in the field. So you would like to go in the field. All right.
Yeah.
Well, so, yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
In a week, and then I'm coming back to this.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Get your coffee ready.
Yeah, you look,
Yeah, I'm with you. I definitely want to be in the field.
Yeah.
And I think I would want to get in the ditch. like just for a week. I don't know if anybody else would like that I'm in the ditch or on their team, their crew.
They would kick you out. They'd say, you know, we're not going to do this
go
for a
back
whole
to
week.
the office and send me the numbers.
I can hand out waters or something.
Yeah, I'll flag.
I got to say, it's been very insightful to have you guys both here. Again, I want to say thank you both for what you guys do for DDS.
100%.
I appreciate working with you guys. Jackson, I'm sorry I don't get to work with you that often, but I do get to work with Barber, and he's great to work with. Patrick, you're doing a great job with your team here, brother.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yes,
it's our pleasure. It's our pleasure. Like, honestly, it's a privilege. We love it.
Well, I think that's an episode well done. Again, thank you both, and for those of you that are listening, please subscribe to the podcast. Please share it, and let us know your thoughts. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.